Hi everybody, welcome back. This is the second of a two-part episode building this Trumpeter 200 scale Bismarck, and this is the aft superstructure that I started last time. I managed to get the photo etch fitted onto it, but I ran out of time to get the final bits and pieces on it and to get it painted ready to fit to the ship. So I'm going to do that in this short second part. And if you missed the previous part, getting all this sorted out, then you can just go back and watch that if you want to. The link for that video is given in the little card at the top of the video screen at the moment. So go back if you want to watch that. I'm going to just start to do the boat crutches first of all, just so that I can get the crutches glued into position nice and firmly. I always like to get as much of the assembly done as possible before painting it, and the boat crutches are something where I want to get a nice good fixing on them, so I'll be able to glue the trumpeter parts in position and then fit a couple of pieces of photo etch. There's some little boards and railings to fit on top of those crutches. So that's the first job. I've got some other trumpeter parts ready for fitting. These are all platforms that go on the roof of this superstructure. And we've got the aft rangefinder unit here. Or the rangefinder goes on top of this structure. We'll leave that to another time, but I've got the actual structure ready to fit. So let's get the crutches done first of all. So we need some parts from the trumpeter kit first. And I'm just going to remove these one at a time because they are different and I don't want to get them mixed up. A nice positive fit onto the superstructure there. And they need to be, because they're carrying the photo etch and the boats that are going to eventually go onto them. They're quite big, so we need to get those glued on nice and firmly. I don't think I'm going to get those mixed up, so we'll cut both off. There are some crutches which go on the roof of the hangar, which I'll build as well. The little strip of brass that goes all the way around the top of the bulkhead here needs to be just removed a little bit, just a little slot cut out for this particular crutch. It rests on the bulkhead and the photo etch was just getting in the way there. Cut a little slot in it, that's all it needs. Well, a really nice positive fit, so we can put the platforms on now. These are the photo etch platforms that Pontos provide. Trumpeter provide the platforms but without the rails at the side. They're really nice. They add a nice detail to the crutches. It would be more straightforward if I could glue this to the roof as I'm building it, but the problem with that is that it's a different colour to the roof, so you'd end up with lots of fairly complicated masking to do if that's the way you went about it. But there's no doubt that these are fairly difficult to put together because the connection points are so fine on them. That they're not easy to line up simultaneously. But we'll get there, just need to fiddle around with them a little bit. So eventually it'll go together, but it wobbles all over the place, the tiny little pins on these. So what I'm going to do, now that I've got the pins in the correct locations, and before the glue sets, I'm just going to position the cradle onto the hanger roof into its position, and that should line everything up, and I can leave it like that to set. I've used Tamiya quick drying super thin cement, so it shouldn't take too long before that goes off. Then once it's set up, I can take it off, prime it, paint it the different colour to the roof. So this roof is in a dark anthracite colour. I use German grey for these steel decks. There are some shorter platforms on these inboard crutches. I'm glad to have got those done. They were quite difficult really. They're very fragile, and as I said, the connection points are so weak. But I'm just going to leave those to set for a while before we give this any primer. Just in terms of where the other parts fit, I've got a couple of platforms like so, and the rangefinder base goes like that. So that's the finished assembly as far as I can go before priming and painting this. So that's what I'm going to do next. So I'll get a coat of Mr. Surfacer on this, and then I've got to do the black around the bases and mask that up ready for the grey. That's all the priming done. There were one or two little touch-ups to do here and there. I've got some glue marks on, so it's worth checking after that primer coat that there's no final little clean-ups to do. These soft sponges are ideal for that. They also get any last little bits of dust from the surface of the primer, and ready for the top coats. So the next job is to create the black boot line along the bottom of all these bulkheads. And the way I do that is to paint the black first, then mask it off with some 1mm masking tape all the way around, and then we can paint the grey over the top of that. So that's the first job, get some black on. This is Tamiya rubber black, just an acrylic black. And I'll just work around all these bulkheads with a thin band of this colour. So now I'm going to use some 1mm masking tape, and I'm just going to work all the way around this bulkhead with this tape. It's pretty difficult to try to do in one piece, so I just break it off into manageable sections 4 or 5 inches at a time. I'm just working around all the detail. It's not possible to do this, at least in my experience, without requiring some touch-ups afterwards. But the idea is to just get as close as you can with this first airbrush coat, then I'll go around with a fine brush just to pick out any mistakes or correct any mistakes. I've been lucky enough to fall on that door there, so that's a good place to make the next join. I've just been really wary of these very fine railings that are fitted on the boat crutch platforms. They're very easily bent, and you'll be able to bend them back once, maybe twice, but after that they're going to snap off, so we just need to be really careful around those. I'll be glad really when this superstructure's on the model now. So it doesn't actually take long to do that. I think it's well worth it. It saves a lot of time with a paintbrush later. But it's handy to have the 1mm tape. That makes an easier job of it, I think. This platform here had a few quite bad sink marks in it, which I've filled with some Mr. Surfacer. So I'll just get that sanded down now, ready for painting. Sorry for the wounds I'm sporting today. I don't know how I got that. So I'll just sand that Mr. Surfacer down. Should get rid of those sinks. Okay, so they're better, hopefully. You won't be able to see those now. So I can paint that now along with the rest of the structure. You can see it's not much different to the primer. Just masking off the boot on this platform here, and because it actually locates the part down into a recess in this deck, I've fitted the part to see where the deck line is and masked off up to the deck line there, so you can see it's slightly above the line of the bottom of the part. And now I can do the unmasking of the boot. And as I said earlier on, this is going to need 1 or 2 touch-ups here and there. Not too many, hopefully. Okay, so that's not too bad. I'll start off with some touch-ups. I'll just get some black, the black that I used here, to just tidy up one or two areas where it's a bit ragged. Just masking up now to do the dark steel decks on the inside of this platform. And I've also got to do this section of the hangar roof as well. And for these steel decks I'm going to be using some German grey. It's a decent alternative for the anthracite colour that we're looking for. So with the steel decks done, I can now fit the wooden decks. Pontos give us a wooden deck for this back section, but they also give us the alternative of a steel deck section in brass, and that's the one that I'm going to be fitting. According to the anatomy of the ship book, this section of deck, where we've got a couple of flak mountings, was a steel deck. So that's what I'm going to use, the brass part. The deck's just a bit too long at this point, so I'm taking just a fraction off the back, and that'll just allow this platform to fit properly. This section of deck is looking as though it's going to be quite tricky, because it's got to go around all sorts of splinter shields on this deck. So I'm just hoping it doesn't cause too many difficulties. It might be sensible to cut this up, I think, but I'll try first to get it on without. It's not a bad fit overall. I'm not going to glue these in position just yet, but I'll just position them so that you can see what they're going to look like. So you can see the purpose of painting the dark ground, the steel here, before fitting those boat crutches. So that's all I'm going to do for this session. This is what I wanted to get to in the last episode. I just obviously didn't have time to finish off, but I'm happy with how we've done with that today. So that's as much as I'm going to do on this superstructure for the moment. Obviously needs all the equipment fitting onto it. But next time I'm going to be moving on to this section, which is the lower part of the bridge. It's a similar process to what I've been doing on all these superstructure sections, removing some of this moulded in detail and replacing it with photo etch. And I'll see how far I get building the bridge structure upwards. So I'll be working on that over the next week or two, and I'll give you some progress on how I get on with the bridge in part 16. So thanks for joining me for this one. I think we've wrapped up 15 and this aft superstructure, and I'll see you next time. Look after yourselves, everybody. Bye for now.